All Hallows Eve, the evening all your nightmares come to life. All the creatures of the night come out to play. It's time to pay tribute to this terrifying month. So join us as we celebrate a sinister season. This is the Venom month of horrors. The reboot.
After Halloween, John Carpenter actually wasn't too focused on continuing the story. None of the cast were. However, producer Irwin Yablans wanted to capitalise on the success of the first film, and approached Carpenter in regards to a sequel while he was making The Fog. Again, he was reluctant, until being talked into it. Originally, the story was going to focus on Michael Myers following Laurie Strode to her new home in a massive apartment building, years after the events of the first movie. But during writing, this was all significantly changed. But Carpenter himself remained unenthusiastic about the entire thing. He claimed the writing of the screenplay mainly dealt with a lot of beer and sitting in front of a typewriter saying, "What the fuck am I doing? I don't know." Well, that sounds promising.
It isn't fair.
However, even Irwin Yablans, the producer who lobbied for the movie to be made, wasn't even a fan of the script, and found it far too bland and predictable. It was Carpenter himself who decided to make it more gory and graphic, and to be honest, it works. Some of it is pretty damn disturbing, and those moments are really cool and were never seen before. Although, why isn't his hand burning right here? It follows the first film's style of tension and suspense, but then ups the kills really well. Carpenter himself added the gorier deaths because he claimed the first cut of the movie sucked and wasn't scary. He had to intervene to turn it up a notch.
Thank you.
But he refused to step into the director's chair again, claiming that he already made the film and wouldn't want to do it again. But it takes place immediately after the events of the original, all in the same night. Which, by the way, is like the longest night in history. The sun just never comes up. What is this, Scotland?
This is ridiculous.
Director Rick Rosenthal was brought on, but he didn't appreciate the changes that Carpenter made, and he felt like he completely ruined the film's pacing. He wanted it to be similar to the original, and to avoid brutal violence to maintain the nature of the first film. But Carpenter believed since the original, horror movies had blown up with gore and that it would flop at the box office if they didn't do the same.
It's all about the money.
Fans were pretty much mixed. Some felt it was a nice continuation and kept the original film's atmosphere, while others found it too gory and generic. But Carpenter decided this was it. No more Halloween films. This would be the one to finally kill off Michael Myers and his Dr. Loomis, and it would be the end of this franchise. That worked well.
Why won't he die?
I mean, it did still gross more than any other horror movie that year, so that must say something. But to their credit, it genuinely does look and feel like it is all filmed and set at the exact same time. You can't even tell. The fact that a completely different director managed to capture the exact same feel and cinematography of the original years later is pretty damn impressive. Except Michael now apparently left a damn imprint in the grass. So apparently he just laid there for hours on end before moving. The thing is, the movie takes nearly 7 minutes just to movie. We start with a recap of the original and then the longest opening credit sequence in history. But the theme is so well composed I almost don't care. The basic premise is Michael survives the attack and then hunts Laurie down, who is now in hospital, and he murders everyone who gets in his way, whilst we find out more of his backstory. The thing is, John Carpenter famously hated what the sequels ended up doing with Michael Myers, and he always wanted him to be realistic, to be human and believable, and to have no motive. Now, don't get me wrong, him lurking around at the start is genuinely really creepy. It creates an uneasy atmosphere, there's no music, you just hear the crickets chirping, a dog barking, and kids trick-or-treating at like 3 AM for some reason. But my question is, John Carpenter, how is Michael alive? I mean, you wrote this script, so there's no way you can get out of it. I can stretch my disbelief enough to buy that he's alive, but there's no explanation or acknowledgement. In the first movie, he gets slowed down by a knife, a sewing needle, a coat hanger. He's clearly human as he's somewhat defeated by basic means. But here, he gets shot off a balcony and then walks around murdering like nothing happened. Hell, he walks through a door like a Terminator, gets shot again, and then immediately gets back up. He bursts through a fucking solid door like he's RoboCop. His eyes get shot out of his skull, and now he's somewhat blind. Fuck being blind, how is he even standing? Let's ignore the fact his eyes somehow grow back in the sequels, but how is he alive? His brain would be mush. And for a movie that says, oh yeah, he can get shot and get right back up, why can't he see? Why is he now blinded? I'm just saying, if he can automatically heal from bullet wounds, why can't his eyes just become unfazed? And then he gets blown up and still temporarily walks away like it's nothing. Clearly wearing heat-resistant clothing, but still! Carpenter, you caused this! You turned him into invincible Jason Voorhees, nobody else!
Okay.
Michael's motivations are just all over the place in this one. He steals a knife from this elderly couple, but why doesn't he kill them? He literally leaves, finds this apparently completely blind girl, breaks into her house, I guess crouches down somewhere in her living room and then springs out to kill her like a child trying to hide for some reason. So why didn't he murder the couple? The change of director is also pretty evident at some points. Not only does he decide to show the balcony fall from a different angle, which makes the shape seem more like a damn Looney Tunes episode, but even here we get a cutaway wide shot to Michael sneaking out with the knife. It looks ridiculous. It looks like a rebellious teenager stealing from a shop, not the most terrifying serial killer in history. There are some nice suspenseful shots of Myers though, so it does at points capture the feel of the original. But he even hides amongst some newborn babies. Why doesn't he kill them? In fact, two nurses individually walk past on their own and he doesn't just murder either of them. Why? You're trying to get to Laurie. Kill someone. Do something. In the original, he was stalking her during the day, but then murdered anyone in his path. Here, he just needs to get to her and still pisses about for an hour. And it's hard to take big bad Michael Myers seriously when he's walking around with a fucking scalpel. The actor was stuntman Dick Warlock, and I think he did a great job capturing the shape's movements and fear factor. However, apparently on set, he was self-conscious that he was moving too slowly. But Deborah Hill assured him that he was doing a great job and he should continue as he was. But once the film came out, she criticised his performance and said that he was far too slow and nowhere near as good as Nick Castle in the original. The best part of the movie by far is Sam Loomis, once again played by Donald Pleasance. He played the first film quite calm and mellow, but here he goes all out and my god, he manages to make what would normally be some pretty bad lines and makes them spectacularly wonderful.
I shot him 6 times.
You don't know what death is. I've told you this isn't a man. It became an obsession with me until I realized that there was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human. One of their number was butchered. This is the wake. What is it you fellas usually do? Fire a warning shot, right?
Dr. Loomis.
You stay with me and shut up.
But I swear, Loomis just has a speech for absolutely everything.
In many ways, he was the ideal patient. He didn't talk, he didn't cry, he didn't even move.
Hey Sam, what did you get up to this weekend?
Yet one night in 1963, Michael Myers did murder his sister in that upstairs bedroom with a large butcher knife.
Although, is it just me, or shouldn't the cop just be driving and then Loomis shining the torch? Just a thought. They're making this far harder than it needs to be. The issue is, they clearly had nothing for Loomis to do in this one. He runs around town with the cops trying to find Myers, Laurie's crush gets crushed, and then they think, here's Michael. Yeah, Loomis mistakes a teenage boy trick-or-treating for Michael fucking Myers. Then they have to find out if it's him or not, then they realise it's not because of the most vague exposition ever.
How old is he?
17. He had this stupid mask on.
Yeah, there's no one else his age in a mask in town.
I can't believe it.
He gets blamed for Michael's killing spree, which does make you feel sorry for the poor guy. The cop is then convinced the kid was Myers just so he can close the case, but at least here it makes more sense than in a later sequel when it was just ridiculous, but that's for another time. And then it turns out Michael took the damn time to break into a school and stab a picture of a sister to spell out all of his motivations for you, and preach about Samhain, which Loomis mispronounces for some reason.
Samhain.
So did I in the first review, but shut up.
Okay. Thanks.
And then gets the entire festival wrong.
It means the Lord of the Dead. The end of summer. The festival of Samhain.
It's a Gaelic festival. about the end of autumn. So Carpenter, tell me again about how you didn't want Michael to have any motivation.
In order to appease the gods, the druid priests held fire rituals. Prisoners of war, criminals, the insane.
Okay, thanks. Also, how the hell did Loomis, or anyone for that matter, not know that Laurie was his sister? They say she was 2 when Michael killed Judith, but where was she in the original scene? Why was she never mentioned? Judith wasn't babysitting her, and she lived with the family for another couple of years after the murders.
She was born 2 years before he was committed. 2 years after, his parents died and she was adopted by the Strodes.
Carpenter admitted he had nowhere else to take the story, so he wrote this sister subplot at 2 in the morning with a lot of alcohol in his system. But he always hated the connection and found it ridiculous. But the thing is, I think it's the only way the story can work. Obviously, serial killers very often don't have a genuine motive. But this is Michael Myers. It's not Ted Bundy. Bundy or Gacy or Dahmer had an urge to kill and they tried to suppress it. This is a character who's silent and basically in a trance. And because there's no dialogue, we don't see them fighting an urge to aimlessly kill or anything. There's no inner struggle. He's just a robot, so inserting this family angle, I'm actually a fan of, and I think it works for the story, and it made it possible to set this franchise apart from others.
Oh, God.
Loomis just kind of hangs around and fills up time until he's needed. He is so wasted in this movie. There's this weird kid who went bobbing for apples and got injured with some razor blades, and it's just weird because it goes nowhere. He just hangs around and then vanishes again. The hell was the point in that? This paramedic is called Jimmy and his entire job is to perv on Laurie. In fact, she's 17 and yet everyone in town seems to know who she is.
It's Laurie Strode.
Yeah. Laurie, can you hear me?
Oh, Laurie.
How fucking small is this town?
Every other word you say is either hell or shit or damn.
I mean, the nurse reacts as if Jimmy does this all the time too. It's clearly not just a one-time thing.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
You've known her 2 minutes. There is also apparently only 2 paramedics in the entire town. I don't care if it's a night shift. Where the hell are the rest of them? In an amusing note, Carpenter realised upon rewatching that there was a massive plot hole, that there was no way of Michael knowing that Laurie was at the hospital. So he had to go and shoot this scene where he bumps into a kid with a boombox playing the news, which is already a ridiculous explanation anyway, which he also hated. John Carpenter has a knack for shitting on ideas that were his.
I don't know.
I do like the idea of the hospital location. It's big, but yet isolated. They do have some nice shots of the empty corridors to mirror the ending of the last film, but it just seems nobody is on duty. There's like 5 people working, and only 1 is in charge of the maternity ward. Some have defended this and said, nah, it's only a clinic and not a hospital, except for the fact that Michael Myers clearly walks past a sign that says it's a damn hospital. Hell, we don't even see any other patients except for this weirdo kid, and none of them seem to be doing any damn work either. Look at them. No wonder the NHS is so shit. It's frustrating because the first film was so unique and original. Kind of. But here it's just a generic lazy slasher. Instead of focusing on Michael or Laurie, they're barely in it. Laurie has less than 25 minutes of screen time. Must have been one of the easiest acting jobs. She just chills in bed with a bad wig for the whole film. Instead, we focus on all of these boring characters. The other paramedic is called Bud, who's such a prick. He's mildly entertaining, but you know he's gonna die later on. They also shrug over Laurie's parents pretty damn quickly. She's 17 and was attacked by a crazy serial killer. How is she not more concerned about where her parents are?
We've been trying to get hold of your parents. Dr. Mixter told me they were at the same party he was, but they're not there now and they're not at home. Do you have any idea where else they might be? No. I'll just keep trying then.
Assuming we ever decide to introduce them to the story. How her dad is in the credits despite not being in the film. What the hell happened there? The movie's just boring. The beginning is kind of an interesting setup, but then we waste time with these boring nothing characters. I mean, aren't you gonna be sad when this random security guard gets killed after having one scene with him? It even takes forever for him to get off. Just die. We do get a convenient dream sequence where Laurie seems to remember her repressed childhood with Michael as her brother, which is a bit weird. But what kind of hospital is this? It has a hot tub! Bud's death looks more like a comedy film and it's not even supposed to be. Yeah, you get that a lot with this movie. Jimmy discovers a nurse being drained entirely of her blood. Yeah, apparently Michael has a lot of free time in this film. He had the time to do this, go to the school, hang up corpses. He even manages to sabotage every single car at the hospital, and apparently that makes it impossible to walk anywhere. Seriously, Michael walks there okay, but everyone else is apparently afraid of walking.
It's 5 minutes to your house, another 5 minutes back to the hospital. Mrs. Alves is going to kill me.
You promised me
But when Jimmy finds her corpse, he goes to run away, and it's hilarious. Then Bud's girl somehow doesn't realise it's Michael Myers' hand and makes out with it! It's bizarre because Laurie apparently has a bad reaction to some meds and enters a coma, but then Myers shows up to kill her and now she's on the run and hiding. But why? She has no idea that he's alive and in the hospital. It just drags. It's just a string of things happening in the hospital, but it never really connects to anything else in the plot. Originally, there was a scene where Michael was going to hide in the back of a car and jump out to kill a news reporter, but it was cut out because it didn't add anything to the story. Well, if that's the case, this movie should be about 20 minutes long! And why is Dana Carvey in this?
Excellent! Excellent! Excellent!
It takes 68 minutes for what we all waited for. The plot to finally kick in and take off where the original left. You just gotta sit through an hour of filler and wait for Michael to shove his finger up this nurse's arse for it to start. But I have to say, I do really like this part of the film. There are many close calls when Michael nearly gets Laurie, and it is quite intense. You beg for her to get away, and it is a truly suspenseful scene. Much like the original when no neighbours are there to help her, she's completely on her own here. Even if the lift doesn't open up when Michael's hand is in the way like it should do, and somehow it takes her to another level and opens up on the other side even though she didn't hit any buttons, but whatever. Jimmy's outcome is also a bit confusing. He just passes out and we think he dies, but in an alternate ending he does survive, just never to be seen again. Except for this. And Laurie somehow can't walk anymore, even though she did a minute ago, and can't scream for some reason, even though she did it seconds ago.
Go and check all the rooms down there. Go on!
On his own? You know Michael Myers is here, right? And despite Loomis being right by the door, Laurie has to bang on it for about half an hour for him to hear. Deaf bastard. It's good to know that Michael isn't the only immortal one though. Loomis gets stabbed by a scalpel and still survives. There is a nice moment in the climax. At this point, nobody has tried to reach Michael except Loomis. But Laurie is his blood. She calls him by his name and he stops in his tracks and begins to reevaluate the situation. It's a nice subtle moment before the stupidity kicks back in. And then we end the brutality with the ever so dark
Mr. Simon, bring me a dream.
This film sucks! Okay, that's a little harsh, but it's not very good. It has nice moments in there and some quite creepy scenes, but it's just boring. Other sequels you can understand them evolving the Myers character, but considering this is literally set immediately after part 1, it's just ridiculous and transformed the entire character. A sequel that isn't altogether terrible, but it's certainly a big letdown.